Over the last few years, I've seen many videos about Silent Hill 2. Many people claim that its narrative is based on psychological concepts. In this video I will prove that this interpretation is wrong, and that Silent Hill 2 is a metaphysical story that dramatizes occult knowledge from Christianity, alchemy, and Jewish mysticism. I will focus on the symbolism of the remake. Although the plot and overall themes are the same, I know that Bloober Team made changes to the original game. I cannot speak on those, because my memory of the original is too blurry. If you want to see a symbolic breakdown of the PS2 version, write me in the comments. To uncover the game's thematic and symbolic underbelly, we first have to establish the symbolic meaning of the setting and how it relates to the other elements of the narrative. In Silent Hill 1, the setting is the externalized psyche of a ritualistically abused child, and also a sociological metaphor for America. The game designers imply that behind a facade of decency and Christian values, America is secretly ruled by occultists who are involved in Satan worship and child sacrifice. Dark practices, which are not an anomaly but take place on a systemic level. Religion, law, medicine, and education not only uphold the facade, but are actively involved in the ritualistic torture and killing of children.
That wasn't our agreement.
No, these are just stalling tactics. If we lend a hand, we will be able to get power. Never fear, the promise shall not be broken.
But the power we could draw now will be very weak. Almost nothing. Unless we get the other half of the soul.
We'll use a magical spell. Feeling this child's pain, it's sure to come.
Themes of child abuse and childhood trauma are also central to the sequel, but they go way beyond exposing a wicked society. In Silent Hill 2, the setting is no longer used as a dark sociological metaphor. The introduction scene, where James looks into the mirror, implies that everything you're gonna see from now on is a journey into self. The game designers tell you subliminally that Silent Hill is a reflection of the protagonist's sick and tortured soul. In its essence, the game is a retelling of the fall of man. Although practically everybody knows the Adam and Eve story, very few know its esoteric meaning. The snake represents the draconian forces working within the human body, which manifest themselves as the sexual urge. Eating from the apple is a metaphor for indulging in lust and fornication, an act that turned our etheric bodies fully physical and led to our entrapment in the material realm. Silent Hill 2 dramatizes the after effects of the fall and the fight to overcome our corrupted nature.
Cozy.
This room. There's something wrong with it. I think we should leave.
Oh, loosen up, James. It sure beats running around with those monsters out there.
I'm not so sure.
James travels to the deepest layers of hell to undo the consequences of the original sin and to rescue his fallen soul. The plot is designed like an alchemical purification and renewal ritual, where the protagonist overcomes the fallen state by cleansing his soul from its worldly imprint. Maria represents James' fallen soul. Her characterization and visual design fall in line with Lilith, the Whore of Babylon, and the Scarlet Woman, which are different aspects of the same archetype. Three powerful entities that have an important role in most occult traditions and whose imprint can be found all over pop culture. Lilith, or in Hebrew, the Night Visitor, is the mother of all demons and the originator of all forms of sexual perversion. Apart from murdering babies and mothers who give birth, she wages war against the masculine spirit by draining and weakening males through fornication. Considered to be a purely evil being in Catholic theology, worshipped as a godlike entity by Jewish mystics. In the Kabbalistic tradition, Lilith represents a powerful evolutionary force that the initiate has to work with to dissolve his ego. She's a temptress that will test the initiate and expose his weaknesses, a cruel teacher because she breaks those who lack willpower and purity of heart. Weak, lustful males who fall for her temptation will not gain wisdom and enlightenment, but will be led to destruction. Lilith is the shadow aspect of Eve and the female counterpart of Samael, the shadow aspect of Adam. She's also known as the Black Moon.
Maria?
The Whore of Babylon symbolizes a wicked nation or system that opposes God's law, a system that separates people from God and shapes them into an image of Satan. The Whore of Babylon is a corrupter of the human spirit. She binds humans to the material realm through sin. In some occult traditions, Babylon represents the primordial aspects of Mother Nature. The Scarlet Woman is a holy prostitute. She assists the initiate during his ascent into the subconscious, underworld, or in Kabbalistic terms, the Qlippothic tree. The Scarlet Woman is a revealer of illusions, deep-seated traumas, and unmet needs, destroyer of limiting identities and belief systems, who leads the initiate to the deepest layers of his subconscious and heals his wounded inner child. Some occultists and theologians believe that Mary Magdalene is also a representation of the Scarlet Woman. The people who made Silent Hill 2 seem to be of the same belief. They called James' wife Mary and placed visual clues in the game world that point to the Mary Magdalene-Scarlet Woman connection. In sexual alchemy, Lilith symbolizes the release of the sexual fluids. The title, Mother of All Demons, stands for the gradual destruction of the nervous system caused by the orgasm, an alchemical degradation process responsible for all negative emotions and psychological defects. Creator of all sexual perversions, refers to the fact that the orgasm creates a deep-seated addiction for sex and a desire for increasingly extreme forms of sexual stimulation. The destruction of the nervous system is responsible for the formation of the ego, which is not a single entity, but rather a legion of different demons fighting for the dominion over their host. A demon can be seen as a negative emotional charge imprinted in your nervous system. Depending on the type of charge, demons can express themselves as addictions, phobias, and desires, or less specific emotions like lust, greed, envy, and so on. Lilith is the shadow aspect of Eve, the fallen soul corrupted by fornication, or in a less mystical language, the human psyche messed up by a burnt-out nervous system. The orgasm led to the soul's entrapment in the material realm. It turned us into self-centered beasts, fully detached from their divine source. The exile from Eden's story is a metaphor for this alchemical degradation process. In the toilet where the game starts, you find 2 Bible quotes. Another one in front of the toilet, and the last one scratched on the church in front of the graveyard. In the toilet you also find a drawing on a wall, which refers to a Jewish myth about Lilith's departure from Eden and Adam's attempt to bring her back. He begs God to make Lilith return, so God sends out 3 angels to invite her back to the garden. Lilith refuses to offer and chooses to remain in the wasteland, where she fornicates with fallen angels and gives birth to countless demons. God punishes her for declining his invitation by killing hundreds of her children every day. Lilith takes revenge on God by committing herself to the murder of infants and mothers who give birth. How all of this relates to the story of Silent Hill 2. The game designers didn't just recreate the outer layers of the myth, but dramatized the metaphysical principles hidden within it. Lilith's murder of infants, in the context of Silent Hill 2, refers to the abuse and traumatization of children. The fall through fornication turned humans into beasts. In this state, humanity is under the influence of Lilith, ruled by a subconscious desire to destroy everything that's pure and innocent. The murder of innocence is an act of vengeance against God's creation, an act from which fallen humanity receives a secret pleasure. James, Eddie, and Angela represent the 3 angels. Bringing Lilith back to Eden is a metaphor for purifying their fallen souls.
Laura?
How do you know my name?
Eddie told me.
That big, fat blabbermouth.
Laura, why do you keep running away from me? And how do you know about Mary?
The plot of Silent Hill 2 is designed like a long chase sequence. James runs after Laura while she tries to escape him. This isn't just a cheap way to get the player from point A to point B, but it has a symbolic meaning. Laura is the inner child, the pure innocent soul before the corruption through fornication. Laura leads James on a journey to purify himself and to overcome his beastly nature. While James is in Maria's company, or from a symbolic standpoint under the influence of Lilith, Laura despises him. Her drawings indicate that she sees him as a predatory beast, a black wolf out to kill the innocent bunnies.
Laura! Wait!
It's okay. We don't want to hurt you. would she run from us?
I don't think she likes me very much.
But why?
You find a painting of dead rabbits in the Brookhaven Hospital, a poster about mental health depicting a little girl, X-rays with a brain damage from childhood note, a teddy bear with a crooked needle in it, the same teddy Laura plays with and the one you find in Angela's personal hell realm. In the inverted version of the hospital, you also find an altered X-ray board that portrays a chained skeleton, a visual metaphor for the chains of childhood trauma. There are toys, baby carriages, baby beds and other visual clues that communicate the childhood trauma, murder of innocence theme. A news article about a man who killed a boy and a girl while being possessed by a red devil is probably the most obvious reference to the game's hidden theme. The article also gives us the clue that Laura's two bunnies are James and Eddie, and like I said before, that James is the Black Wolf. If you read all reports and pay attention to the visual storytelling in the hospital section, you realize that the three hopeless patients are James, Eddie and Angela. In the case of Eddie and Angela, it's pretty obvious how their psychological issues relate to the childhood trauma, murder of innocence theme. In the case of James, it's more intricate. James represents the wicked father who failed his wife and children, the symbolic Adam who fell for the serpent's deception and cursed his offspring to a hellish existence. The red baby stroller, in which you find the serpent coin, is a visual metaphor for the original sin and the damnation of Adam's offspring. Silent Hill 2 is like a biblical horror-induced family drama. James and Maria play the role of the messed up, incompetent parents. Eddie and Angela play the role of their messed up, rebellious children. Laura is like a godly figure, the embodiment of innocence, unaffected by the horrors of Silent Hill, the perfect untouched soul. That's why Laura cannot see any monsters and move through Silent Hill without being harmed. The sequence in the apartment building, where you first solve the coin puzzle, get the key, and afterwards enter room 201, reveals the hidden Adam and Eve substory. There is a coin of a man, a woman and a serpent. In the background you see a big tree. And here comes the man, so sleek and so fine. In the pale moonlight his eyes doth shine. This passage is about the arisal of lust. The moonlight night motif refers to Lilith. Like I said before, Lilith is also known as the Black Moon. The moon's central role in the werewolf and vampire mythology also refers to Lilith's influence. Both vampires and werewolves are metaphors for the fallen state. The Heaven's Night strip club, where James is led to by Maria, is also connected to this passage. The title Heaven's Night is based on the term Night Side of Eden, which is a different name for the Qlippoth.
Is that you?
Would you like it to be?
The man now approached, his blade now revealed, his face disappears behind shining steel. This is a poetic way of saying that Adam pulled out his Johnson and started chasing after Eve. This passage also reveals why Pyramid Head looks the way he looks. The blade is a reference to male lust, and more specifically, the male phallus. Disappears behind shining steel is another way of saying that a horny dude who's taken over by his private parts loses himself in his desire. Pyramid Head's mask is a visual expression of the disappears behind shining steel motif. It not only blinds him, but wearing it appears like a torturous burden. His mask is also shaped like the tip of a blade. The first time you see him in the game, there are shining bloodstains on his mask, which are a reference to the blood on the phallus after intercourse with a virgin. Pyramid Head's design is a visual metaphor for a man fully taken over by a sexual urge, a blind primitive beast, searching for females that he can impale on his giant blade. Away from the man doth the maiden flee, towards the flower away from the tree, implies that Eve tried to protect her purity from Adam. When a girl loses her virginity, it's also called defloration or deflowering. Where once grew a flower, a venomous glee, implies that Adam took Eve's purity by force, which caused humanity's degradation into a beast-like state. Where once was a maiden but a stone doth be, implies that the sexual act between Adam and Eve initiated humanity's spiritual death. And over her grave the man doth remain, his blade never met the vile serpent's vein, is a reference to being stuck in the beastly state because of the inability to overcome the sexual urge. The beast who its teeth in her flesh doth bore, he who failed, she who is no more. Now unto you falls a grievous chore, who carries blame for what fate had in store. The text implies that the serpent, which symbolizes the sexual impulse, caused the exile from Eden. Now unto you falls a grievous chore implies that James, our symbolic Adam, has to undo the original sin and to regain Eden. When you open apartment 201 and walk right, you find the room in which James killed Mary. When you leave the room and keep walking down the hallway, it triggers a cutscene. You see how Pyramid Head rapes and kills 2 female monsters. James hides in a closet and watches the murder like a voyeur. After that, James follows Pyramid Head through a red door, which leads him to the inverted version of the apartment building. When I'm using the term inverted, I'm referring to the Qlippoth, the shadow aspect of a setting or character. The rape and murder committed by Pyramid Head is like a twisted mirror image of James' murder of Mary, a manifestation of the dark truth, hiding behind the seemingly righteous act of ending Mary's suffering. The sequence reveals that James didn't kill Mary to end her misery, but because he was fed up with her and wanted to fornicate with other females. But it goes even deeper than that. The murder in the bed motif has a symbolic meaning that aligns with the exile from Eden meta-narrative. Getting killed in the bed is a metaphor for spiritual death through sexuality. By indulging in fornication, James, the symbolic Adam, raped and killed his own soul. Later on in the game, after James faced the truth about being a beast and the murderer of innocence, we see Mary for the first time. She lays in bed, sick, broken, with a scarred face. Her disfigured looks represent the torture James inflicted on his own soul by indulging in fornication. The repeated stabbing of Maria by Pyramid Head also has a sexual connotation and is a direct reference to the coin puzzle. All clocks are stuck at the same time. You also find corpses of males who look similar to James scattered all over Silent Hill. Both visual clues imply that James is stuck in an infinite loop. They also hint at reincarnation. Finding the corpses indicates to the player that every man is a representation of Adam, destined to repeat his failure, until one arises who is able to overcome the original sin. After rewatching Groundhog Day, I've realized that it's pretty much the same story like Silent Hill 2. It just uses different metaphors to express the same themes. When you get the Maria ending, this reincarnation infinite loop motif becomes very obvious. James finds her sleeping in the Heaven's Night strip club, a metaphor for remaining unconscious and staying stuck in hell. He doesn't read Mary's letter, a decision that reveals his denial of reality and inability to face the truth about himself. When James and Maria walk to the car, Maria starts coughing. James makes an annoyed remark that she should visit her doctor. This is a subtle hint that everything that's happened to James will happen again. Maria is going to get sick, he's going to kill her, and once again return to Silent Hill. In the labyrinth section you find the graves of James, Eddie and Angela. By implying that the main characters are dead, the game designers add another symbolic layer to the infinite loop motif. The setting of Silent Hill becomes a reference to Purgatory, a concept from Catholic theology, which also can be found in Judaism, Islam and Hinduism. Purgatory can be seen as an intermediate state after physical death, a realm where the soul is purified before entering heaven. The Hindus call this realm Naraka, a place of torment where souls are sent for the expiation of their sins. In Islam, it's called Araf, a borderland between heaven and hell, where people go who are equally sinful and virtuous. Their souls experience the terrors of hell and the beauty of paradise at the same time. Eddie keeps killing the same man. You might think that he's shooting his bully, but this is a wrong assumption. The man he keeps shooting is James, different versions of him. Or rather, different versions of Adam, the father who failed all future generations. That's why the interactions between James and Eddie appear like a tense relationship between a dad and his rebellious son.
You fat, disgusting piece of shit, you make me sick. You gonna cry, fat ass? You gonna run to your mama? Waste of skin, why don't you just kill yourself? Well, maybe he was right. Maybe I am nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead. And a corpse can't laugh!
The hatred for the father motif is even clearer in James' interactions with Angela. After you defeat the bad monster, which is a visual representation of Angela's sexual abuse, she talks to James like he is her biological father. a man who beat and raped her as a child.
Okay, Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not, It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know. I see what you're doing. It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
Angela, please.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead. Say it. Or you could just force me. Like he always did. You disgusting pig. I hate you.
There is a scene earlier in the story. James finds Angela in front of a big mirror. The game designers placed the mirror in the room to imply that everything that Angela says relates to James. Her pointing the knife at him is a reference to a news article you find later on in the game. The article reveals that Angela stabbed her biological father. The combination of the knife, the mirror, and Angela's dialogue implies to the player that James represents the wicked father who destroyed the innocence of his children. The title Rosewater Parks has a symbolic meaning. Besides being a global symbol for love and romance, in satanic circles the rose symbolizes Satan. You meet Maria in Rosewater Parks standing on a platform above the water. Water represents the subconscious. Maria standing over the water implies that Lilith rules over James' subconscious. There is a substory in the game about a man who tried to cross the sea to reach the woman he loves. You find out that he died on his journey because he was misled by the light of the moon. This is a reference to James and his journey to reach Mary. Misled by the moonlight is a metaphor for Lilith's influence. Getting lost at sea is a metaphor for getting lost in the subconscious, the underworld, or in Kabbalistic terms, the Qlippoth. Kabbalists describe the Qlippoth as a dangerous labyrinth where you face your inner demons. Working with the Qlippoth shouldn't be taken lightly, because it's a journey that can lead to spiritual evolution or spiritual destruction. In the last third of the game you enter the labyrinth. Visually, it's designed like a demonic version of a single-family home. The game designers chose this visual representation to communicate the childhood trauma theme. They tell you subliminally that the trauma we receive as children is the hell we are trapped in for the rest of our lives. In the labyrinth you find Maria sitting in a cell, a visual metaphor for the fallen soul trapped in the underworld. She once again tempts James to stay with her and to abandon his journey to find Mary.
Doesn't matter who I am. I am here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
I don't know.
The cube in front of Maria's cell is a reference to Saturn, also known as the Black Cube. Our souls descend through Saturn to enter the physical realm. Saturn is the game master, the ruler of the simulation. He creates our physical bodies and binds us to the laws of time and space. That's why to this day most religions secretly worship Saturn as their god. You also find traces of Saturn worship in all other walks of life: art, architecture, technology, fashion, pop culture, etc. His imprint on our lives is omnipresent. You walk through the cube to enter different areas of the labyrinth. In one of the areas you find Pyramid Head's private chamber. Its visual design expresses his role as the torturer and prison guard of James' fallen soul. In the labyrinth you also encounter Angela and Eddie. The game designers imply that both of them are lost in their subconscious because of the trauma they received as children. James tries to lead Angela and Eddie out of the labyrinth. Both deny his offer to help because of their hatred for their fathers and their attachment to Mama, or in symbolic terms, their fallen souls. Angela constantly repeats that she tries to find her mama. When you enter Rosewater Park at night, James meets her in front of a statue of a hooded woman.
I don't think she's here anymore, James.
Who?
My mama? She doesn't want to see me anymore.
The statue is a representation of Lilith. The mama doesn't want to see me anymore line implies that Angela has no chance to heal and to save her fallen soul. She's stuck with Lilith, unable to leave her personal hell.
I better get going.
You still don't want me to go with you? If we stick together, we might just make it out of here.
Out of where?
This town. Silent Hill.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Oh, you didn't happen to see a little girl around here, did you?
A little girl?
Yeah, Angela? Are you all right? Angela?
No. Please. You shouldn't be here.
Angela, it's okay.
No, don't touch me!
The fact that Angela didn't see Laura in the park and has no interactions with her throughout the whole game represents her inability to heal. Eddie is able to see Laura and talk to her. His outfit also has a similar color palette as hers. This indicates that Eddie still has a chance to save his soul. Angela's childhood trauma is so severe that her inner child or pure innocent self was fully destroyed.
Thank you for helping me earlier. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserve what happened.
No, Angela, that is not true.
Don't pity me. I'm not worth it. Or maybe you think you can save me? Will you love me? Care for me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought. James. Give me back the knife.
No, I won't.
Saving it for yourself. Have it your way. It doesn't change anything.
It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
In the prison section, there is a substory about a disease that spread among the inmates. Although multiple inmates got sick, the doctors couldn't find any proof that the disease was real. When you pay attention to the visual storytelling in the prison area, you realize that the disease isn't physical, but spiritual. Before you enter the prison, there is a little church. You find the quest item heaviest weight on a podium next to a cross. A subtle implication that carrying your cross is the hardest thing you can do in life. In the next room you find the diary of a priest. He writes that the prisoners are not willing to face their sins, or in symbolic terms, carry their cross. By placing the church in front of the prison, the game designers want you to make a thematic connection between the two areas and their distinct substories. When you get the Maria ending, where James makes the decision to remain ignorant about his sins, Maria starts coughing. This is not only a hint at Mary's disease, but also a thematic revelation. Her condition represents James' spiritual decay. His inability to face his sins is the reason why his soul cannot heal, and in the case of the Maria ending, the reason why she will remain sick. The hospital section also expresses the spiritual disease motif.
They are beyond hope. That's what they keep telling me. My 3 patients. My 3 hopeless cases. But I do not believe it to be a matter of hope. It is a matter of diligence, discipline, trial and error, of being as bold as one can be, to go as far as one needs to. I will find what it is that truly ails them, and I will cure them.
The visual design of the director's office implies that you can only heal your soul through spiritual enlightenment, or in alchemical terms, by turning lead into gold. An occult saying that doesn't refer to physical gold, but to the dissolvement of the ego and the realization of the higher self. After collecting the bands from the 3 hopeless patients, you get a key that depicts an alchemical symbol. A symbol that you also find in the Harry Potter series. The term rebis can be translated as double matter. It refers to the realization of the great work, which is achieved by aligning spirit and matter. Realizing the great work is synonymous with turning lead into gold. The dead dragon represents ego death. Finding a dragon graffiti in a laundry room is a subtle hint at the purification theme. The key opens a door where you find a button with a philosopher's stone engraving. The philosopher's stone represents the pineal gland, also known as the third eye, an universal symbol for spiritual enlightenment that can be found in different cultures and religions. The sequence in the inverted version of the hospital, where you have to unlock the box, also communicates the healing through enlightenment motif. The box is chained to 3 different areas. Each area represents a different psychiatric treatment method. When you get rid of the chains and unlock the box, you find out that it's empty. This is a metaphor for the pointlessness of the psychiatric trait and its inability to heal a spiritually sick person. After opening the box, a curtain is lifted behind James. A black door is revealed that portrays Lilith. The door leads into the basement, where James encounters Pyramid Head and witnesses Maria's murder. Entering through the door is obviously symbolic. The game designers imply that healing can only take place if you go into the underworld and face the darkness within. After his encounter with Pyramid Head, James takes the elevator upstairs. He finds a notebook and a key with a blue medical cross attached to it. The cross has the same color as Laura's dress. The game designers tell you once again that you can only heal when you purify yourself and return to a state of innocence. Laura's dress has a blue, white and magenta color palette. When you mix white and red you get magenta. In the context of Silent Hill 2, magenta is a symbol for the alignment of your higher and your lower self, or in alchemical terms, the alignment of spirit and matter. White represents purity, blue represents tranquility, healing and spirit, red represents lust and man's beastly nature. If you pay attention, you see that Laura wears a red hairband. The hair is associated with female beauty and fertility. Holding the hair together with a red band is a symbol for controlling the sexual urge. The Lakeview Hotel has the same color palette as Laura's dress. Its visual design also expresses the game's alchemical symbolism. One side of the hotel is dominated by the color blue. The other side is dominated by the color red, indicating that James is still split between his spirit and his beastly nature. There is also a sub-story about a messy garden that is currently under construction, a metaphor for James' task to undo the effects of the original sin and to regain Eden. In the closed-up garden section, you find magenta-colored flowers, indicating that Eden can only be regained by aligning spirit and matter. In the hotel, you also find a room full of bird cages. The trapped bird motif is a reference to Mary and Maria, the trapped soul stuck in the underworld. In the apartment building you find a room with a welcome home text written in gold letters. The gold color refers to the purified state, home refers to Eden. When you walk past the text, you find a drawing of 2 white bunnies on a yellow wall, another hint that you regain Eden by returning to a state of innocence. You also find a golden apple, a symbol for the reversal of the original sin. You use the golden apple to open a secret chamber that looks like a cell. In it, there is a puzzle that expresses the returning home motif. This section tells you subliminally that James is trapped until he is able to overcome the fallen state. While exploring Silent Hill with Maria, you are able to enter a small garden in front of a single-family home. The toys you find on the property indicate that the young couple with small children used to live here. Maria doesn't follow you inside the property. When you return to her, you get the option to trigger the following dialogue.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, it's just... This place... It just gives me the creeps. I'm not sure why.
You ever been inside?
I'm not sure. It does feel familiar somehow. Like a bad memory. It's nothing, really.
The section is a reference to the Paradise Lost theme and the myth about Lilith's refusal to return to Eden. The fact that Maria suffers from memory loss, which is implied multiple times throughout the game, is a metaphor for the descent into matter. By indulging in lust and fornication, our souls lost the connection to God and the memory of our heavenly origin. We turned into beasts, fully detached from the higher realms, addicted to the pleasures of the flesh. In the fallen state we deny God and fight tooth and nail to remain in the physical realm, where we can experience animalistic pleasures. The myth about Lilith's refusal to return to Eden expresses this phenomenon. The Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale communicates the same thing. The story is about the soul's descent into matter. The forest represents the material realm. Getting eaten by the wolf is a metaphor for the transition into the beastly state and the spiritual death we experience as a consequence.